Alrighty, and we are back, episode 18 of Chasing 69, a New York Jets podcast. Alongside Teddy Pristash, I am Blake Pace. It is Thursday, July 21st, when this podcast comes out. We are on a good stretch of some Thursday pods here, but we'll probably switch back to Wednesdays at some point, I'm assuming.
Whenever I stop having random things happen on Tuesdays, we're there.
Exactly. The club's going up on a Tuesday. But we are here. We are on the cusp of training camp. Rookies have reported. We are, what is it now? Is it 48 days by the time this comes out until the season, or is it 49? Was 50 today?
I think 49 was today. I don't know. I get confused with how you count.
Because it was in the group chat, and I don't remember if it was in the group chat yesterday.
But then I saw
today
a
was
tweet.
Kind of a blur.
I think it was today, but I saw a tweet that said 49. So go to someone else to count down your.
We're in the high 40s.
Exact
we're almost
days.
There. We're almost.
I mean, once you hit that 50 mark, it really does feel that way too. Like I know, like obviously camp drags a while. It does. And like preseason like isn't the most exciting, and it's only the rookies reporting today. We still have a week until it actually starts, but this week kind of doesn't really count. But once we get to next week, I mean, we're in it, and then we're 2 weeks away from the first full week of preseason games. We'll be seeing NFL teams play football in like 15 days. I think August 4th, I think is the day. So it's exciting. We're getting there. And it's time to kind of nut up and get into this season,
I know. And we were talking before the show of how we've been doing a good job just finding things to actually talk about as far as the Jets go. And this is going to be one of the final weeks that we have to do that. So today's podcast, a little bit going over some housekeeping as always. We're going to go into and do our 21st century all offense team for the New York Jets, which as we'll get into is so funny because it's not like the Jets have been all that successful in the 21st century. So it's a easy list to make, I'd say, because of that. But even for some of them, you're just like, meh.
Yeah, it's easy and hard at the same time.
Exactly, because you don't want to we're giving all this credit to players where it's like, okay, right. you were there for 3 years and you were really good during those 3 years. But before we get into all of that, of course, make sure to follow us on Twitter at NYJ_chasing69, Teddy at Teddy Huncho. I'm at Blake Andrew Pace. YouTube is the same as the Twitter account. Teddy, chilling in upstate New York. How you doing today?
Doing good, man. On that same grind as always, working. Got the dog. He's acting crazy.
Good old River. How's
things are going well.
Everybody's worried.
Everyone's asking about his leg.
How's River doing?
He's doing well. He's officially, I mean, he's been fine for like a week now, but he's officially off like his meds, off any restrictions as of yesterday. So he's doing good. He's just a little boy.
Nice. Little boy.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, let's get right into it. A few housekeeping stuff. We've actually had some stuff happen this past week.
First time in forever.
Real
things to talk about.
Not talking about what's going on in Zach Wilson's personal life and gassing up people on Instagram.
We'll give him a break, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Teddy, the Jets cut things a little bit close there with Breece Hall for a second. Of course, he entered into, I don't know if it was Shefty or Ian that put it out. It might have been Ian, I believe, that put out, hey, Breece Hall yet to sign his rookie contract as the rookies report to Jets training camp. And then it came out about an hour later. It was like, oh no, he's just going to sign it when he gets there. And sure enough, they got the deal done, 4 years, got everything fixed away. It was funny. I remember when right after the draft, or maybe it was a week or two after, and they were getting some deals done with the first round picks, you were like, it's nice not having any drama with some of the players, and not that this is drama at all, but it did get to that potential of like not holdout but technically holdout.
No, that was funny. I was thinking about that today as well, how I was like, yeah, we don't have to deal with it this year, and then all of a sudden it's like, do we have to deal with it?
Right.
But this was one of those stories that I didn't let become an issue unless it needed to be, and basically that report came out saying he'd yet to sign, and then like you said, it came out that he was planning on day one when rookies report, and then once this morning happened, and or yesterday morning, I don't know, I get the days confused. Once that happened and they said he was in the building, I was like, all right, it's a wrap. So that was good. And it's interesting. I mean, kind of what the only thing that can really be negotiable in these rookie deals is how the guaranteed money comes in. And that's offset language. That's what you always hear, and that's what the Jets have dealt with the past few years with their number one picks. Same thing with Breece Hall, but in this case, they actually did. They gave him 3 full years guaranteed. I think that's just interesting. I'm not exactly sure how the other ones went down, but I don't think the Jets have given in that way to any of these other picks. Maybe to Wilson, but I don't even think that's true. So yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, Breece Hall, the media and me and the Jets are staking a lot in him and are pretty confident he's going to be a great player. So, hopefully this is no big deal that we're just guaranteeing, what is it, $9 million, $3 million a year for a great player. Hopefully that's what we're doing.
And a position where there's a lot of vitality. Is that the word I'm looking for? Yeah.
Volatility.
Volatility. Wow.
Vitality. That's close though.
It was close enough. You guys knew where I was going, but yeah, it is interesting. It's funny now with the expectations for rookie running backs. Not that we need to go too far into this, but you go to the days of where Saquon's taken it to, and you look at that now and in his production, you're like, what a fucking bust there. Leonard Fournette at 4. Christian McCaffrey at 8. That one was. He's been fantastic. He's been banged up a little bit, but he's still only 26 years old, and so you wouldn't. Of course, positional value is different. A guy like him, I would almost say worth it because he's been that team's entire offense the last few years. But now we're at the point where, it is, you have to be a rare type of running back to even go in the first round. And, the Jets made their move to go up a few picks and make sure they got their guy. So it's funny because there's still those expectations, but at the same day, you're like, well, he's a second round pick. And so it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Obviously, they got big plans for him, leading a very run-heavy offense. So that was good to see them get that taken care of. Some other news and notes from around the Jets. George Fant, kind of working in between. We're not really sure. I saw a report from PFF that said it was likely that he would sign a contract extension before the season begins. They talked about what that deal would sort of look like. And it kind of was more of a Charles Leno type deal, who also had, one really big, strong season heading into the following training camp, wanted a little bit more security, and got a 3-year, $35 million deal. That's, what is being looked at in the same sense here for George Fant. So just interesting to see the numbers wise. Of course, he's, a little bit older of a player. He's not at the end of his career, I'd say, but there's confidence in the fact that he had a really strong season last year, but there's also that question mark of like, this kind of came out of nowhere. It's great. How comfortable are we, moving forward that's going to be the level we get. So, when you hear those numbers, Teddy, and you take a look at, a position that is extremely important, and given the uncertainty of their other tackle, what do you make of the deal and the potential that, he is the long-term fix here for the next few years at left tackle?
Yeah, I mean, I don't love this, to be honest.
Interesting.
I've kind of been not really a skeptic. Like, I don't think George Fant's not going to be good or be able to emulate what he did last year, but I kind of hold back when it is just kind of one good year. I don't want to just dive in head first and say, hey, he's going to continue this play that he didn't really put on before last year. I think the Mekhi Becton piece is like the big wild card in this, because if the Jets were confident Mekhi Becton was going to be able to hold down, one of the tackle positions, it would be less important for Fant to get signed. So I don't know. I just don't love it. I really, he's had 1 year of production. I really think that it makes sense to give it one more year, see how he does, then maybe sign him to like a 2-year deal, which obviously he might not love that, but that's just what I think makes more sense to really, see him establish himself and say, I can do this multiple years in a row. Also, like this money, like if he got 3 years, 35 mil, that's like top 8. I think it's like 6th in the league. The PFF clip says, if four tackles in the league. So it just seems pretty high for a guy like George Fant, but at the same time, he really was great last year. there's a possibility he does continue that, and I'm just being a skeptic. So, we got money to spend. It's not the end of the world, but I'd prefer to wait till next year for sure.
And there's every reason to be skeptic. Like we were saying right beforehand, it's not like he was this stud left tackle that just came in and continued what he was doing. This was a little bit of a resurgence for him this past year. And, we've seen, up to this point, I think it came out as well too, that Fant confirmed his agent and the Jets have talked. So they're getting a little bit further there. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna push back because I understand the concern. I think far and away, outside of and this is a good offensive line, but I would almost want to make sure I am keeping everybody on that line happy. Because the most important thing to this franchise right now is number two, and how to make things easy for number two is to keep him upright and to be able to move the ball in the run game. And not to say he's going to go out there and pout on the football field if he doesn't get a deal before this season, but I think there's a lot of comfort in knowing I am valued by this franchise. And it's a different situation if it's a team that is, a little bit tight on the cap. If he was maybe, 34 instead of 30 or 31 right now, I believe
30,
it's
I
31.
think.
Yeah. So it's, he's still got a few more years. Even by the end of that, it's like, then you could probably see the decline. And you know how these contracts work. It's not going to be fully guaranteed. It'll probably be like those other deals with Corey Davis and Carl Lawson, where it's 2 years high money and the third you can cut bait. And what I also like about it is it gives you a little bit of flexibility where, okay, Mekhi Becton comes back. He's fantastic. He is the future franchise left tackle. Just move Fant over to the right side to finish out those years. Not that it's, if he does take a step back, it's like, okay, well, at least we can put him as a starting tackle at the not less important side, but I guess the less important side. It is.
That's
You got to protect the blind
yeah.
side. So you move him over to the right side. And that way, at the very least, you've got somebody there. And, if you go into the future and you find another tackle in free agency that's a little bit younger, the trade market or in, upcoming drafts, it can kind of be that succession plan. So the money is a lot. I think it averages out to a little bit over 11 a year, 11.33 or point, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But,
good math.
It's thank you. I wasn't as
that
nice
actually
as
is correct. It's literally 11.33. Like after you said that, I was like, damn.
Good for me. Good for me.
That's
I like that because I wasn't in the advanced math like you and the maze and everybody in high school. So I was always a year behind.
I'm actually wrong though. That would be 34. So
yeah, you're right. It's
11.
more of like
6. Here we go. Is this a math podcast now? That would be sick.
Oh, we should be a meth podcast.
Yo, Cortland,
math
New York.
Math. Training camp. All right, off the rails. But no, I think that.
No,
go ahead.
I definitely agree. I mean, you're making good points, and I think that like it really doesn't break the bank. If it is $12 million a year, and Joe Douglas is going to structure his contracts the way he does and have that out, so maybe it would only be committing really to this year and next year. So I hear what you're saying definitely, and we all know this is how the money works, where the highest paid guys aren't always the best guys. They're just the guys who are getting paid the most recently. So
right.
You made a good point. I think you might have swung me, but this will be something I'm interested to see what happens.
What do you gun to your head? Deal gets done before training camp?
I don't know. Like I this is kind of something that people have been like asking about and like thinking about, but I haven't really seen anything. And like some guys I follow, like we're saying they haven't heard anything. But now with this new report that came out in the past couple of days, I mean, who knows what this PFF guy like knows what his connections are. But yeah, I don't really think it'll happen. I guess I think I'm on the side that I think Joe Douglas would be playing this safe, but at the same time to be able to not guarantee, because things can happen, but essentially guarantee that you're going to have this guy along with Elijah Vera Tucker, along with Mekhi Becton, and that like your point about having the same guys rolling for Zach Wilson year to year, that's going to help them. That's going to help him. So yeah, I'm going to say no, but I definitely, you made good points.
I'm going to say they get it done. I
also think
just because of how I think
throw a dollar on it.
Like every time they talk about how important he is also to the locker room, I'm just like, keep those guys happy. And if it's not going to break the bank, do it. So I think they're going to get a deal done. Moving things along, we got two more things to hit on with our housekeeping before we get into our all-21st century offense team. Jeremy Fowler hinting that the Jets could be in the market for one more splash. Obviously taking a look at their secondary there is where he honed in on things. And you take a look at the secondary and you go, okay, strong safety is taken care of and outside corner is pretty much taken care of. I wouldn't think that they're already looking to add in another guy to take DJ Reed's spot outside. So to me, that looks like free safety. And I think everybody else is thinking, okay, well, that means free safety. Really, that just connects the dots to Jesse Bates, who, of course, has got into a little bit of a contract, not dispute, but they just aren't close to terms with Cincinnati over there playing. I guess he's going on the franchise, correct? Because of this, because they weren't able to get something done.
I think so. I'm not super tapped into it, but
and so now that's what everybody is kind of connecting it to. There's a free safety that's available. That's the one position that the Jets could potentially be taking a look at to enhance, as they slated to have LaMarcus Joyner there probably to start off the season. That would be quite the upgrade to bring in Jesse Bates. What are your thoughts on it? Because you go first. I've got a couple of thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I've kind of put this in there, this was kind of like the story of the day, that Jeremy Fowler, he's writing a power rankings article for, whatever, NFL.com or wherever. And kind of just like in a one-off, like just writes the Jets could be, still in play to make one more splash move before the season begins in their secondary. That's kind of what he said. And then everything else from there, as far as my understanding, is just kind of conjecture. It's just kind of projecting things. The thing with Jesse Bates, like he's kind of what this conversation is about, because when Jeremy Fowler writes something like this, you kind of are like, okay, well, what other move feels imminent that would kind of move the needle for the Jets at free safety? My problem with Jesse Bates is just like, what's it going to take to get a deal done? And do you see Joe Douglas, moving important capital just to get like a free safety, when he's already been shown to not want to pay Marcus May, and obviously with the Jamal Adams, he got a haul for that. So I don't know. I just don't really see it as that likely. I think that Jesse Bates is going to require a bigger deal than Joe Douglas is going to want to give, and I think that another team that's maybe closer will be willing to give more if they feel like that it will really like solidify their defense, as opposed to the Jets. I mean, it's still kind of like a risk, So yeah, I don't really see it happening, but hey, Jeremy Fowler knows more than me, so who knows?
We're on the same page. I don't, after all the additions that they've made to their secondary and all the resources they've invested in there, it's like, yes, LaMarcus Joyner is the weak point of the secondary, but it's a good enough upgrade of a secondary where I don't think you have to really super overreact and just put all of this money in the back end and all of these high draft picks in the back end just to make up for it. So I agree. I think the cost would be too high. They weren't willing to pay guys before at that position. Obviously, they spent a little bit on Jordan Whitehead, but I think as much of a talented player as he's also just a huge, great character for the back end of that defense and bringing some physicality to the team, and not physicality.
I mean, last year we bring in like Elijah Riley and Will Parks, who are kind of like bounce around guys who we signed when we had a lot of injuries and COVID at the end of the year and stuff like that. But those guys I thought did okay in the limited time they saw last year. So if it's not Joyner, maybe one of those guys can plug in. I just think there's still, it's not like the Jets, like, I mean, obviously it doesn't look great, but it's not like the Jets look like this is like a dire need where they really need to overspend for it. So do I think Jesse Bates is a really good player who I would have liked them to have? Yes, for sure. Do I see it getting done? No, because he is that good of a player that I think he's going to demand high value.
And I just think when you're looking at the weight, you need to spend money wisely around the entire roster. And there are far more positions that I'd rather address than a free safety at the moment. And obviously that point of the season is done. But I would much rather see a move at linebacker or add a little bit depth on the inside. And, maybe
I'm still on Quan Alexander watch.
I know. Yeah. We're in week, fucking 8 of that now. We're just patiently waiting for him to show up.
Week like 3 of preseason will be there. Maybe.
Exactly. I agree. So yeah, I'm glad to see we feel the same way about that. Great player, just I don't see it getting done.
Yeah.
Another thing we got on here, actually there was an extra thing that I skipped over by accident because I didn't see it. Jeremy Rucker on the NFI list. Starting off rookie camp, a little bit of a foot injury.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because
Yeah.
like number one, I think it's weird that it's the non-football injury list because like it's a foot
Because
injury he's
it's
been
a
dealing with.
injury.
Like, is it not from football?
Is it
Like,
one of
you
those
know what I
ones where
mean?
like you're walking out of the shower and you slipped and then all of a
Right.
sudden it's technically
I
not
well, what I
football, but
think
it's
it
still a
is because
football
I think
injury?
if it happens in the off season, like the NFL isn't responsible
Oh,
for
they're
it or
not
something, you know,
liable.
there's
Yep.
right. But I don't know. I just I also don't know exactly how the NFI list works, but I just thought that was funny. And the reason I wanted to mention it is because basically um like it's just sick that it's like, oh no, our third round or was he third round or fourth round? Third round tight end that we picked in the draft. You know, in years past, it would be like, what are we gonna do? Like, we need this guy to have a huge role. Like, we picked him to to be in this like to be a part of this offense. And now it's just like, well, we have CJ Uzama and Tyler Conklin. So while this is not what you want to see and you want to see your rookies out there, at least we got two guys ahead of him who we're pretty confident are going to be okay. So Uzama is
Exactly.
kind of dealing with an injury too, but hopefully he can be out there for the beginning of camp.
I will say we're now getting to the part of the season where we're going to start learning about injuries and hopefully everybody stays healthy. And
I'm
that's something
stressed about it
we
for
have
sure.
spoken about for months. Cause like there are teams where it's just like their season gets ruined before it even starts. You know, I think of the last 2 years, the Baltimore Ravens, like I've always
Yeah.
I've loved their team. And then it's by week one, it's like they don't even have like 5 of their top 15 players. So
Yeah,
hopefully
I mean, and
everybody.
we've dealt with that for sure these past few years. We've been very injured and you know, lost our best player in Carl Lawson last year. So hopefully we have some better luck this year.
Fingers crossed for sure. And then the only other thing I wanted to just hit on this, I didn't see the other positions, but it's always fun because people love getting mad about Madden rankings. And I do too. I love getting upset about them.
Really?
Oh, I haven't bought the game in 3 years, but every
Really?
time
I
I
play
see it,
Madden all the time.
I just get mad. I haven't bought it since 2020,
Yeah.
2019. One of those.
My thing with Madden is number one, if you're a Jets fan, you just have to get used to like all the players you like are gonna be in the 70s, you know, like
Hmm.
because we're just not there yet. And number two, it's like when you play Madden, once you start rolling with like franchise mode, it takes like 5 games for your guys to like become like an 89, you know. So I think I'm playing with updated rosters, and Breece Hall is like a 99 in my franchise, you know, after like a
That's
year.
awesome.
So yeah, we're chilling. But yeah, no, Madden. I mean, do any of these jump out at you? Um, I know like Corey Davis 79, 4-point dip from last year.
Yeah.
Elijah Moore only a 79, you know, which I don't think is insane, but you know, he probably should. Hopefully by next year he's at like an 85, 88. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like everything is pretty accurate for the most part.
Basically everything is like high 70s and below.
Yeah, there's
For
nothing
people
crazy here.
listening.
Breece Hall is a 76, pretty solid. I do
Yeah.
like every player loves getting mad about their rankings, but Braxton Berrios was very upset about his 75,
Yeah, it
which
was a
is
funny post. It was a funny
well
post.
because it's funny because like yes, he's a very talented athlete. But it's also like if you even just take a look at your own depth chart, it's like you
Right.
are the wide receiver 4/5. So it's like what
Well,
do you
I think what
expect
he
to
was
get?
really mad about was the 53 strength, you know, which is
Yeah,
funny because
yep.
it's like, who's making that up at Madden? Who's like, all right, this guy, yeah, let's go with 53. You know, like it is funny. Maybe if he bitches enough, he can get the Madden adjusters to
Yeah.
you
The
know,
Madden adjusters
come
are
to
so
Jets
funny.
camp.
They take their
It's
job
so
so
dumb.
seriously.
It's
They take
also
it.
like you can't go and watch every single player. You know what I mean? Like
It's such a pointless job to have. It really
I
is.
know,
It's a
dude. We
video
should get that
game.
job.
I know. Ditch the podcast for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than that, no, I think everything else. Jeff Smith, highest speed on
I
the
love
team. I
how
think
you
they gave
wrote
him like
Jeff
a
Smith on this list.
it was on there. They gave him a
Jeff
96
Smith's a
speed,
68 overall.
fastest guy on the
Damn.
team.
Let's
Fastest guy
go.
on the
I'm a
team.
big Jeff Smith guy. I rewatched the Jets Jaguars game from this last season.
Mm.
Jeff Smith had a big drop.
Oh
Stunk.
no.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think about Denzel Mims going from a 72 to a 71 this year? After all the hype that we've been building up this offseason goes
I
down.
know. I can't believe it. I think
This
Denzel
is the dumb.
Mims
This might be the dumbest thing we've spoken
has a
about.
lot to prove and is going to be electric.
I just had
Yeah,
to put him
let's
on
move
there.
on because we have a lot to talk about with
We
this
are
21st century all offense team. But
exactly. We are going to
I
talk
could talk
about
about these
Denzel
Madden
Mims a little
rankings all
bit.
day.
We're going to talk about Denzel Mims a little bit later with this
No,
all
we're
century team.
not.
I
Could
was
you
going to put him on
imagine?
there. I was going to put him as our top two. All right.
We love Denzel Mims.
I just love giving. I love giving Jets fans shit for players that they hype up for a little bit and then they underperform and then like there's still hope and there's still hope. And even this
We
offseason, like
hold
I
on
understand,
forever.
dude, you guys have been holding like the Denzel Mims stuff this offseason. I'm
Watch
still
him
like,
just become the best receiver on the team.
it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. When has it ever happened where a guy has just been a bum for 3 years and then year 4, it's like, oh look, he's Megatron. It just doesn't happen.
We're due, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, we're due. He's gonna turn the tide. All right, the 21st century all offense team. We just wanted something to talk about for this, and we're gonna kind of go down through an offensive roster. We got one quarterback, one running back, two wide receivers, a tight end, two tackles, two guards, and a center. Our lists are going to be very similar, and I think that is what we spoke about a little bit earlier. Hard to really have a diverse list.
I'm sure if any of you listening out there sat down and made a list, you'd come up with some similar names. But
Just
you know, we got a few
almost
good
all similar
discussions in
names.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few differences that we have and other guys that we just wanted to give a shout out to. There's another part to this where, you know, we've spoken about this on the pod before. As much as we want to say that we know enough about the Jets to speak about them, we were late on even the 21st century to the Jets.
I'm a huge Jets fan. I became a Jets fan in 2009 when they came to Cortland, New York, and started doing training camp there. You know, I apologize that from my 0 to, you know, what was it? My 0 to 11 age of my life.
Sorry.
I wasn't a
too
Jets
busy being
fan,
a kid.
but yeah, I was just a child. But you know, I kind of remember some of those guys, and like obviously a lot of them are obvious picks. But yeah, we may not have the experience with some of these guys. Your first pick a quarterback, who I think a lot of people would pick a quarterback, is a guy we weren't really there in his era, but you know, he deserves it all the same.
Yep. Yeah. So let's just roll right into it. My quarterback, and even just I just got to echo real quick. Like Teddy mentions 2009 is where things all really started for him and whatnot. I watched the Jets when they went to training camp. I went to a bunch of practices. I know a lot of these players that I have on this list, and I started covering the team 4 months ago. So there's a little bit of a gap in there, but I've always been an NFL fan. So it's not like I just never knew what was going on with the Jets. And I got a lot of people in my life who are Jets fans. But that being said,
Mostly
we'll roll into my quarterback. I'm going Chad Pennington. I feel like this, to me, is the easy answer. And not to tip a hand, but I know Teddy and I don't necessarily agree on this first one. And he's in a little bit in his feels here, but just a little bit more longevity, I would say, for Pennington. Got a few, what was it, 6 or 7? I have it right here. 61 starts, 32 and 29 as a quarterback, 65% completion percentage, just under 14,000 yards with the Jets, 82 touchdowns, 55 interceptions. I feel like his most memorable season, that 2002 year where they started off 1-4 and then came back 9-7 and went into the playoffs. It's tough to say any other name. And one part of this that I guess we should have mentioned at the top too, we are just including the years from 2000 to 2021. And I think the big thing because of that, to mention, you know, Vinny Testaverde, the numbers throughout his career.
What do you have? 2 years?
He had 2 or 3 seasons, I believe, in the 2000s. Yeah. And so it's just at that point, it's just that there's not enough there. And we went more of a little bit of longevity for some of these guys. So Pennington was my pick at quarterback. I think when you take a look at just the list of names, it's depressing as fuck. And this is the one that I think stands out the most.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's really no other answer you could give other than, you know, the only 3 names that kind of pop up are Vinny Testaverde and then the guy who I'm going to select. But I mean,
Geno
it's
Smith.
like, you had that Brett Favre year, you had a Ryan Fitzpatrick year, like maybe those were some of the better seasons,
Great season.
but just not the 21st century all offense New York Jets team. So while I do agree that Chad Pennington is the probably best pick, I'm going to throw a little credit to my boy Mark Sanchez.
You love him.
Anyone who knows me knows he's my favorite NFL player ever. Number 2 is Jerry Rice. Number 1, Mark Sanchez. But I feel like you just got to give credit to, if you look at what years have the Jets been the most successful, what year have we gone the deepest? Those were those first 2 Sanchez years. Obviously, it wasn't because of his play necessarily, but he was there, he was leading the squad. I just want to take a quick little walk down memory lane. These are kind of, this is it. This was the beginning of my Jets fandom, was the Mark Sanchez years. He had 4 years with the Jets before that 2013 season where he never played because of the shoulder injury. Started all but 2 games in that 4-game span. Only 33 and 29 overall, 86 touchdowns to 89 interceptions. That's passing touchdowns. So it's not like he was ever putting up really prolific numbers.
No.
But the way he was able to step up in the playoffs and get those wins, a lot of come from behind victories, spread out throughout his career. 2010 was that just like magical year. Jets went 11-5. He didn't really have that great of a year. Only 17 touchdowns, 13 INTs, only 3,200 yards. But he had 5 fourth quarter comebacks, and 4 of those came in a 5-week span or 6-week span, maybe. So 4 of them came in a 5-week span, maybe. Yeah, that makes sense. But basically, like, I remember that so vividly. Like, I remember watching Jets games every week, and there was that 4-week span where every week it was like the Jets are down, and then what do you know? Like, Mark Sanchez is leading a game-winning drive and just like making all the throws, knowing what he has to do. Freaking what's that play? The naked bootleg to run it in. Like, I remember those games. So while Pennington is like the clear pick and the longevity is there and a slightly better numbers, I think Sanchez had like 56% completion percentage over his career with the Jets. But I just want to give the nod to my favorite player and the guy who led us to our most successful years in terms of what it's all actually about, which is getting to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, quarterback wins, right? No, I love Mark Sanchez, the person. I think he is a fun guy. It's nice seeing him around the organization. He's done stuff as like an analyst. He's hopped on, with Fox Sports before. It's
great
cool
personality.
To see him. Right, exactly. And a cool dude. But I think to me when Woody Johnson came on their podcast and announced everybody that was going to be in the Ring of Honor, and Mark was kind of just there. It was like, that pretty, like, what are you supposed to do?
If he was if he was like better throughout that stretch, like maybe, but then he probably wouldn't have, been moved on. But yeah,
exactly.
No. He really, it's not like he was this great player, but he got it done when he needed to with the Jets, at least in those first 2 years.
Yeah, look, got to give love to Mark. He's especially
my
for the 2 of us, I would say, where with Chad before my time, Mark was my time.
Your
where
time.
I was going to practices, I was watching the games. Like, I'll never hate on Mark Sanchez. But I, just from a pure numbers and success, I guess the records are relatively the same, but I would argue Mark had a little bit more help in some of those years. So quarterback taken care of, running back, pretty easy. You
guys know who we're gonna pick?
Yeah, we're gonna pick. I was trying to think of a really shitty running back you guys have had recently. Le'Veon Bell. That's who it is. We're gonna pick Le'Veon Bell.
Damn, clip that. Add him.
Running back. No, we're going Curtis Martin. He's the greatest running back, not even of the 21st century, of the entire Jets franchise history. Going back to those late days. Curtis Martin, from 1998 to 2005 with the Jets, racked up 10,302 yards. That is most in franchise history by just about 2,000.
Yeah.
And he's got his 58 touchdowns, also lead the franchise. Taking a look at specific seasons, was over 1,000 yards every year except his last one, including two 1,500-yard seasons in the 2000s. As you mentioned, Teddy, you've got here only the only one over 10,000 yards in his career. I was trying to pull up, and now obviously it's my screen is done. While I wait for that to load, Teddy, what would you like to add in about Curtis Martin?
No, I mean, we don't have to spend too much time on this. When you think about the Jets running backs over the last 21 years, there are a few good seasons. There's a few guys who were good, obviously, like LaDainian Tomlinson, who came from another team and performed well. Chris Ivory had a few good seasons on the team. You think about Thomas Jones and his stretch, which was kind of right in that, those 2007, 2010 years. But yeah, I mean, it's Curtis Martin. He played 6 of his 10 years in the 2000s. So for the purpose of this, those are what the years we're looking at. And he was still great,
Fantastic,
running over 1,000 yards every year, basically, except for his last. And what I like when you think about the Jets and who would like your average NFL fan from anywhere in the country know when you think of like, oh, who are the best Jets players of all time? And the answer to that question, there's 3 guys in my opinion that you can name. It's Joe Namath, it's Darrelle Revis, and it's Curtis Martin. I mean, those are really the only guys you can say in terms of like league-wide superstars, like skill position guys who are actually studs and like the best at their position at some point. So yeah, I mean, this was the easiest one. I think, we kind of want to give honorable mention to our boy Sean Green.
We do. We got to give it.
The thing with Sean Green, he had that like amazing postseason in 2009, his rookie year, and then I think he had an okay year in 2010, but just he never really did he never became what I hoped he was going to become after that playoff run. Yeah, and then the only other guy I really think about giving credit to is Chris Ivory, who, I think had either over 1,000 or pretty close to it. Maybe not over 1,000, but oh yeah, okay. Maybe. Well, so there you go. I mean, it's Curtis Martin. All you guys who are listening know that is the correct answer in this situation. So yeah, let's talk about receivers.
Let's talk about receivers. And these ones, I don't know if I'm trying to read yours. I believe we have the same 2 here as well too. So this is pretty easy to go with as well.
Yes,
too.
We do.
We wanted to choose 2 because obviously you got a lot of wide receivers out in the field at a time, and those 2 are going to be Lavernius Coles and Jericho Cotchery. And I feel like those 2 are kind of like with Martin, not to the same extent where Martin is that prolific, well-known all-timer. But these are the 2 that stand out the most just in terms of longevity and consistency over their careers as well too. There have been some fantastic single season receivers. You take a look at the leaderboards and you're like, Robbie Anderson is that high up in receiving yards for the franchise. Yep. It's just like, man, some
played,
guys
3 or 4 years
exactly
on the team.
And that's the thing is like, it's such a funny list with all things considered with how the Jets have been, but these 2 stand out more than the others. Was there one that cause like,
yeah, I mean, so when I initially, Lavernius Coles was obviously he was a little bit before our time. I mean, they basically played in the same time era. The thing with Coles was he came back to the Jets after a few years away, and then I'm pretty sure he came back again in like 2014 or like later, but then got cut in camp. I'm pretty sure that happened. It may have been a fever dream.
I'll pull that up.
But yeah, so when we were thinking about this list, first name that came to my head was Jericho Cotchery. Just because even if he wasn't necessarily the number 1 for most of his career, usually Coles was there, and then he had a few years, and then Braylon Edwards got signed, and then Santonio Holmes came in, and he kind of just lost his role. But he was just that guy who was so consistent for this team, and he played a lot better than what, if you just look at his career numbers, what that indicates, and he always like made the plays when they needed to be made, and he just had sure hands. Like he was the definition of reliable in my opinion. And then Coles is a guy, played with the Jets for 7 years, had 3 years over 1,000 yards. Cotchery only had 1, so he's definitely like the better player in terms of just pure numbers. So when you think about which receivers you're going to put on this team, I feel like those are the 2 best answers you could have. Few other guys to think about. Wayne Corbett obviously
Yep.
spent some of his career in the 2000s, and he's a guy, if you ask any Jets fans kind of from that era, a little bit older than us, Wayne Corbett's like their guy, which well deserved. I just don't think his numbers really, his better seasons were in the late 90s, than
Yep.
pre 2000s or post 2000s. Yeah, so I mean that's kind of just what I think of those guys. The guys I wish I could have picked, like my favorite receiver in the past 21 years, Braylon Edwards. I loved him on the Jets. It was awesome how he came over from the Browns and kind of had that stone hands kind of reputation. And he had a few drops, but most of the time he was just making plays. And at least his first couple of years with the Jets, the third year was kind of lost. Santonio Holmes, obviously, kind of a dickhead, but what was great and was a captain before he kind of freaked out at the end of his Jets career. Yeah, I mean, those were the guys I kind of thought of. What were your thinking behind all this?
The only other one that Wayne Corbett, like you said, it faded out a little bit, and it wasn't enough years in there where, like I said, longevity and consistency from Coles and Kadri sit out there. I don't know, because there were a few, I went so in and out with the Jets during training camp, and most of that is just because they're not my favorite team. They're not the team that I care about and watch and root for. But the 2015 season was so much fun. And I was a big Eric Decker fan because I believe I had him on my fantasy team that season. So that's another guy where it's just like single season, or even just a little bit of stretch that he had there. Really enjoyed him with Brandon Marshall. But you're right. Braylon Edwards was great. Santonio Holmes.
Yeah, I thought you were going to spend some more time on our boy Brandon Marshall. I mean, he was like, I mean, that was a great year he had in 2015 with
of course,
with Fitzy. They were like best buddies. That's why it always broke my heart that like they left and Fitzy doesn't really talk up his time with the Jets, because him and Marshall seem to be best buds over that year or two.
I mean, he was one of the top receivers that season in terms of touchdown catches. He had 14 that year, which led the league. 1,500 yards. I mean, the targets.
1,500 yards. Like, I would kill to have a receiver with 1,500 yards on the Jets.
He was targeted 173 times that year. You do not see that often.
I wish I played fantasy then and like was really into it, because Brandon Marshall would have been a great guy to have.
Yep, filthy. So yep, him, Decker that year was super important. But yeah, you go into those stretches of when the receivers were around Cortland, Braylon, Santonio. I'm trying to think if there was another guy that really stood out.
Had Plaxico for a few years.
Plaxico,
he had some good games. But I mean, if you're looking at like the numbers and like what these guys produced, it's Kadri, it's Coles, and then everyone else just didn't really have the time here to cement themselves on this list.
Yep. And kind of as we move on to the next position, tight end, there's just one name. And even Teddy put some honorable mentions below, and it's just a hilarious list. 5 years out of Dustin Keller was really all it took to become the number one tight end for the Jets of this century. And you take a look at the numbers, 48 starts, 240 catches, just under 3,000 receiving yards in his time, average about 12 yards a catch, which is nice. Touchdowns were few and far between, totaled up 17 by the time he was all done there. And I mean, it's even funny. You take a look, rookie season started 6 games. His final year in the NFL, 5 games, and only appeared in 8, a little banged up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we agree. We both picked Dustin Keller. But it is kind of one of those things where like Dustin Keller kind of came out of the gate strong. We thought we got our
high
guy.
expectations.
He had a really good year, 2010.
High expectations.
And then he just kind of never materialized into like we put him on this list, and don't get me wrong, it's like he was the best, but at the same time, Dustin Keller at the end of the day was, kind of disappointing, because he didn't ever become what we hoped or sustain what we hoped.
And there was hope for him to become a well-rounded tight end. And really all he became was a little bit of a receiving threat at that point. And so when you're not able to mold in, and tight end is one of those positions where it does take time. And I think another problem, and you look at how teams draft nowadays and how their entire plan and investing in certain positions go. He came into the league as a rookie at 24. And that's usually, now you're starting to see tight ends come in. Kyle Pitts was 21 this past year. He's one of the youngest players ever drafted. And he came in and it's like, okay, well, tight end's a lot younger. You give them that time. And by the time they're 24, that's when they pop onto the scene. And yet, you get Keller in here back in 2008, already at 24. And it's like, well, that's probably what he is at that point then. So it's so fun to take a look and see how NFL has even changed over the last 15 years with that. But yeah, just kind of didn't live up to his highest expectations. You take a look at his biggest season in 2011, 815 yards, 5 touchdowns, both were career highs, 65 receptions on 115 targets. The catch percentage was never the prettiest. I think his entire career was 58%. But yeah, whereas some of these other positions were like really good players, this one is just the best that's there.
So yeah, I kind of put together this list of kind of other guys that kind of came across my mind when we were doing this, but obviously like aren't anywhere close to making this list. But when you think about the Jets tight ends over the past 21 years, and like we said at the beginning, the early 2000s we don't know as well, but I just names that came to my head: Jeff Cumberland, Chris Herndon, Jason Morrow. I remember a lot of fans were hyped up about, and then our boy just a few years ago, Ryan Griffin, who Ryan Griffin signed a deal like mid-year after catching 3 touchdowns in 2 weeks, and everyone was like, "Oh, the Jets, they're gonna have the best duo ever with him and Herndon," and then that didn't work out. Yeah. Jeff Cumberland didn't work out. Jason Morrow didn't work out. Dustin Keller didn't work out. So yeah, I this brings me back to how excited I am about our tight end room. I think I've probably been able to say that on 70% of our podcasts at least. But it is something I'm really excited about. And realistically, these guys are probably the best tight ends that we've had at least since 2010, at least since Dustin Keller. So
definitely. And one thing just because I saw Chris Herndon, I want to bring this up. I was doing a little bit of research and Gangrene Nation, SB Nation's page for the Jets. I don't know who did it, but they did a wine cellar team. And it was just like, it was like the best players' best season. So it was like 2002, Chad Pennington, all that stuff. And tight end, it was Chris Herndon's rookie season. And that was it. And it's just like, wow, good for him. But that's where we're at, obviously. Teddy, as we move along to the offensive line, I think that this is less of a numbers thing, but more of a longevity and being able to.
Yep.
It's been such a bad offensive line and there have been so many terrible seasons that it's not hard to stand out as a really strong player. So as we move into tackle,
real quick before we even say anyone, I going through this, I was just kind of scrolling through the years, taking a look at like who the starters were, getting a feel for when everyone was there. And it was just like, once you got to like, I don't even know, like 2015, like once Mangold left, it was just like, why am I even looking? Like there's nobody here, So yeah, I mean, who do you got? Let's start offensive tackle.
Offensive tackle
position on the field.
We have one that we both agreed on, and that's D'Brickashaw Ferguson, 3-time Pro Bowler with the Jets, spent his entire career there from 2006 to 2015. And when we say consistency and longevity, 160 starts out of 160 games throughout his career, which is just fantastic. That's just what you want as a left tackle. You want to take a look at that game log and you want to see every fucking game you were out there. And he was a good one. Obviously, Pro Bowls 2009, 2010, 2011. So he had a really strong stretch those 3 years. But that was the consensus one that we both were like, yep, this is easily one of the best tackles for the Jets in this 21st century. My second guy, where I was a little bit different, was Jason Fabini. You just take a look over what he provided for the Jets as well too, and he had a few seasons. His first 2 years with the Jets were before 2000, but from 2000 until 2005, started all 16 games of each season as well too. Wore number 69, so that's why he got a little bit of an extra shout out from me here. He got the cut there as a podcast shout out. But starting left tackle there from 2000 to 2005, or sorry, apologies, 2005 he switched over to right tackle before leaving to go to Dallas in 2006. But just another one where it was like, your tackle is good if he is consistently out there and he's playing at the same position. So those were my two guys.
Yeah, I agree with you on D'Brickashaw. I got to put my hand up. I'm not exactly sure anything about Jason Fabini. So sorry to all you Jets
That
purists out
yeah,
there.
that's we can both acknowledge that. I
Yeah.
don't want to say that I was studying him in 2000 when I
I
was
thought you were
3.
the Fabini guy. I thought you were always like looking him
I'm
up and
actually
have
45
the
years
jersey
old.
on the wall. Anyone watching on YouTube, you can see Blake's Fabini jersey hanging in
Yep,
the
I got
back.
it hanging up.
Um, yeah, I mean this was a funny one with the guard because the Brickashaw was like before it went. The second we said we were going to do this, you knew he was going to be on the list.
Mhm.
But not a ton of other like great guards that lasted. I mean, there's guys who like kind of came in, but not a lot of guys who really did great with the Jets. Guy I'm going with, Damian Woody, was only there for 3 years, but it was kind of right in that Cortland era, as I like to call it, right
Mhm.
in the
Yeah, I like
successful
that.
Sanchez years.
Cortland era player.
Yeah, and you know he was great. I remember watching him on Hard Knocks, messing around. I think he was going by Damian Woody 2.0, or maybe I'm getting him confused, but you know there was just a lot of fun, a lot of personality on that team. He was one of those guys, and he's just a great player who was great while he was here. So, you know, DeBrickashaw and Damian Woody, like when I think of the Jets and like how I grew up and what I was watching, like those two are so important and stick out to me. So yeah.
I'm a little mad at myself because after hearing you say that, I wish that we had made this segment the all Cortland team, like the
Bam, that would
all
have been
Cortland
fun.
section
Like
team. That would have
the
been fun.
2009 to 2015
We'll save
era.
that. We'll save that for the next time. We've got nothing to talk about. We'll go through the
Yeah,
entire all
2014
Cortland team.
maybe.
That would be perfect. But yeah,
It's funny
okay.
like how niche that is because like we grew up with training camp right around us, you know, and when we're not
In our
from New
backyard, and
Jersey, we're not in
for
Jets country,
those
you know, but Cortland's
for
a small town.
those that have never been to Cortland, exactly. That's the thing. It's not even the fact that it was like in our town. It's our town has not a lot,
Nothing.
and we were super like both of us. We live right down the street from each other. The
Yeah,
stadium
very
was literally
close.
5 minutes away. You would bike there every day, twice a day in those first few seasons. So yeah,
Yeah,
and
that was sick.
it was a fun time. But yeah, I look. Those are the three names. I went with Fabini just because of his longevity with the team. But Woody was fantastic for those 3 seasons. So it's like you can't argue that. Guard, I feel like we go 2 for 2 on these, or did we? Oh yeah, I see what we got here. Yeah, so
Yep,
we did
yep.
1-1.
Start.
I'm gonna go first. The consensus one here is Brandon Moore, undrafted for the Jets, showed up in 2003, but then spent from 2004 to 2012, same situation. Every game he was out there, he was a starter. 2004, 13 games, technically didn't play the full 16, but out of 142 starts or games from 2004 on, he started every single one, was just a plug and play guy at right guard, didn't have to worry about that position for an entire decade. And that is extremely important. And as we've seen with them try and reshuffle the guards around at this point to where you can hopefully get some of that, it shows you how important that is when you see how bad offensive lines can be and how bad they got kind of right after this tenure. You know, for a lot of these guys, as soon as it hit to those
Definitely.
early
Definitely.
2010 years is when it just fell flat on its face.
Yeah, I agree. I had Brandon Moore as well. And I mean, you said it exactly with DeBrickashaw. It's like that's what you want out of your lineman is you want to get an offensive lineman and then have him be your starter for like 10 years, you know, and that's what the Jets were able to kind of put together in the 2000s. And that's kind of why a lot of those teams, I mean, it wasn't a great decade, but the Jets weren't this like terrible team every year, you know, had a few playoff appearances, were able to run the ball well, had some winning seasons. So, I mean, this offensive line was a huge part of that, along with their defenses they were able to put together. But yeah, that's what you look for.
Yep. And then just like we were mentioning with the other guys in their Pro Bowl seasons, Moore was a Pro Bowler in 2011 as a 31-year-old right before the end of his career. So got to give him a shout out there. We went a little bit different on the second one. I've got a Hall of Famer. I just want to put that out there. I've got a 9-time Pro Bowler, a 6-time All Pro. He didn't spend his entire time with the Jets, though. That's the only problem. 2 seasons with New York, 2008 and 2009. I should say his name, probably Alan Faneca, from previously with Pittsburgh, came over in 2008, spent 2 seasons at left guard, 16 starts, Pro Bowler both of those years.
Yeah.
To me, he's the guy that I didn't do the longevity with but that's just because I struggled to find a second guard. He was a guy that came in those years where you said it was a really successful running football team, or at least a good one. And he's a very talented player. So
yeah, I mean, he was there kind of again, right in that sweet spot, one of those years where they made the playoffs and made the AFC Championship game. He's like the best, like Brandon Moore's a great player, but if you just look at like who is the best guard who's played guard for the Jets in the past 21 years, regardless of career, how long he was there, I think the answer to that question is Alan Faneca. Just a great player, really gritty, like mean dude. I mean, maybe not mean, but that's how he comes off at least. But yeah, I went a little different direction because what do you got? What do you got?
No, I'm laughing at where you're about to go because
it's just it's funny. Listen, here's the deal.
Funny.
I went a little different direction, and the reason I'm picking Elijah Vera Tucker for my All-Century team. And listen, I know you're not supposed to do that. I know he's only in his second season, but guess what? Elijah Vera Tucker essentially played at a Pro Bowl level last year. Maybe not, but right there. And he was taken as a guy
Pro Bowl adjacent.
Pro Bowl adjacent. Yeah, for sure. And he was taken as a guy who, everyone said this is going to be the guy who's going to come in and you're going to know he's going to have a long career and be successful. And, he's 1 for 1 on kind of giving me what I hope for. Obviously, I've already said it on this podcast. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler this year. I think that, it's just a vote of confidence. Obviously, maybe he doesn't necessarily deserve to be on this list, but I think there's a solid chance that he's the best guard that we're ever going to have in this century. After I just said that about Alan Faneca. So let's go AVT.
Hey, I love it because I also think he's a fantastic player, and it's a little bit of a projection. It also makes me think of like for some of the guys currently on the team, and it's all glass half full at this point, but it's like how many of these guys could end up on there? Tight ends. What would it take? Like how long would Uzomah have to be there to really become the best tight end of this century for the Jets? There's a lot of guys on this list.
Put together a few good years.
If Wilson becomes a strong quarterback, it's not going to take a lot to pass Pennington in those few seasons. So that's interesting. But no, I like it. I like to laugh. I just laugh because obviously he's only had one season, but he's never not been Pro Bowl adjacent in his career. So got to give him that. And then last but not least, Teddy, for those of you who didn't follow Pee Wee football.
Wait. You said last but not least. I was just thinking, oh, wait, never mind. I apologize. I was thinking saving the best for last. And that is truly what we're doing here.
Well, I was teeing you up. I was going to let you take the floor with this guy.
All right. I apologize. I kind of jumped the gun.
You're okay. You're okay. We're both going to the same place. It's the same guy. If you were in Cortland, New York, when Teddy and I were in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, Teddy was one of the best centers in our Pee Wee football league.
Dang,
and
that's
an idol
true.
of his was the all-time great Nick Mangold. So go ahead and take it away. Talk about your love for
Yeah. I mean, I did play center. I always wanted to play receiver, but I had to play center for a few years there. But yeah, Nick Mangold, I mean, again, he was one of these guys where when we said, hey, let's make an all-century team, you knew Nick Mangold was going to be on the list. Yeah. And I think, I mean, literally, it's like, what can you even say about the guy? Like it's so obvious. He had an 11-year career, started every season of his career, basically never got hurt. He was out there for all 16 games in 7 of his 11 years. I think the other 4 years, he got injured in his last year, but the other 3 never played less than like 14 or 13 games. I mean, that's freaking reliability. And you imagine him and DeBrickashaw, you remember them being out there just every game, week in, week out. Those 2 guys are there. You don't even have to worry about it. I kind of get mad. I think that Nick Mangold's kind of one of these guys who is on the edge of like being a Hall of Famer. I mean, I really think he should be a Hall of Famer. I think we just got to kind of push that and get the media going. But yeah, I mean, he's great. I think when you look, all right, we're making an all 21st century team. If you just said like, who are the best Jets, who are the best players that have played on the Jets in the 2000s, I think your 2 answers, obviously there's Curtis Martin. But then you have Revis, and then you have Nick Mangold, and in terms of the Jets that we've seen personally, since that 2009 year, other than Revis, Nick Mangold's the best player we've seen on the Jets. So obviously he deserves to be on this list. I'm happy we're kind of wrapping it up with him because he's such a great player, being inducted into the Jets Ring of Honor this year, along with DeBrickashaw and Revis. So yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, you said it all. There's not much more to add into that. It is funny. Some of these guys' careers ended so much earlier than you would think. And not that every guy's got to last into his mid 30s, but you take a look, and Mangold was wrapped up by the time he was 32. A few other guys I saw earlier, I think Lavernius finished pretty early as well too. But yeah, for Nick Mangold, it's consistency. It's a high level 2-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowl. And it was all through different stages. It wasn't like he was just having a great stretch. It was consistent. And then some years, he elevated even beyond that. And, he had 4 Pro Bowls in a row, 2008 to 2011, then 2013 to 2015 had him as well too. One of the best centers. I agree. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know, eventually as the years go on, you'll start to get some of these guys that were fringe Hall of Fame talents that'll start to get a little bit of buzz, but maybe we should get that started. We can be the podcast that gets Nick Mangold into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, let's do it because he deserves it.
All right, cool. Well, just to go recap everybody's list real quick. My quarterback, Chad Pennington. Teddy went with his heart. Mark Sanchez, a clear number 2 pick though as well too, I might say. Both of us went Curtis Martin at running back, Vernius Coles and Jericho Cotry at wide receiver, Dustin Keller at tight end. Both of us had DeBrickashaw Ferguson there at tackle. I went Jason Fabini. You went Damian Woody as your second. Both had Brandon Moore at guard. I went Alan Faneca as my other. You went with the young stud Elijah Vera Tucker, and both finished things off with Nick Mangold. Teddy, that is our all 21st Century Jets team.
Oh yeah, how you feel? Great list. I feel good.
List. Strong list. Awesome.
I wonder who's going to win when we put them out there.
Yep. I wonder.
I don't know how you create a poll with this many words though.
You'd have to do a graphic and then below have the poll. So
that's a good idea.
Maybe we'll
wow,
do
look
that.
At you. Maybe
look at us.
We'll get our graphic designer on that.
Yeah, exactly. This guy. Thank you guys.
Blake.
We are gonna wrap things up today. I don't know if we'll get back to the defense one next week. This was more of a
we're considering filler. It.
We're
next week is training camp though. I mean, there's lots to talk about.
I want to talk position battles. I want to get into all that stuff.
Storylines,
some fun stuff that we got coming up as guys get to camp. But thank you all so much for listening, as always, to another episode of Chasing 69. You can follow us on Twitter at NYJ_Chasing69, same as the YouTube. Teddy at Teddy Huncho. I am at Blake Andrew Pace. Thank you so much. We are so close to football season. Today and yesterday were really the first 2 days where I was like, okay.
Wow.
And I think it was because I wasn't, there's not a lot of sports going on elsewhere, so I just spent a lot of time focusing on football. It's like, hey, pretty fucking close. So we'll get there. We're going to have a lot of fun this season. Thank you, Teddy, as always, for hanging out. And we'll see you guys next week. Peace.